My sister-in-law kept saying, some of us have real careers, so I didn't mention it when my company hired her and I saw her application. It started at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. I'd just been promoted to senior recruiting manager at Belmont Tech. My husband's sister, Vanessa, had spent the entire meal making comments about my job. Must be nice pushing papers all day, she'd said. Some of us have real careers that matter. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, made decent money, acted like she was curing cancer when really she was convincing doctors to prescribe expensive medications. But I smiled and passed the potatoes because family dinners weren't worth the fight. Every holiday after that, same story. She'd ask what I did in this patronizing voice, then cut me off before I could answer. Oh right, you're in HR or something. Not HR. I ran talent acquisition for a company with 8,000 employees across 12 states. I decided who got hired and who didn't. But Vanessa never let me finish explaining. Last month, her company restructured. She was laid off with 200 other sales reps. I found out through my husband, who got a panicked call from his mom. Vanessa was devastated, already blasting her resume everywhere. Can't you help her? My husband asked. I said I'd keep an eye out. Then her application landed in my inbox. I recognized her email address immediately. She'd applied for a mid-level sales position. I opened the resume, and my stomach dropped. She'd lied about everything. Her job title was inflated by 2 levels. She claimed to have led a team of 15 when I knew she'd been an individual contributor. She listed a bachelor's degree she'd never finished, and she'd fabricated an entire certification program that didn't exist. I sat at my desk for 20 minutes, just staring at the screen. Part of me wanted to reject it immediately, but another part of me was curious how far she'd take this. I passed her application to our screening team without comment. She made it through the first phone interview because she was good at talking. Always had been. They scheduled her for a panel interview with 4 department heads. I attended as the recruiting lead. Standard procedure for senior positions. When Vanessa walked into the conference room and saw me sitting at the table, her face went white. She recovered quickly, flashing that sales smile, but I saw her hands tremble when she shook mine. The interview was brutal. Not because I made it that way. I didn't have to. Our VP of sales asked her about the team she'd supposedly managed. She stumbled through vague answers. Our technical director questioned her certification. She claimed the program was new and prestigious. He pulled it up on his laptop during the interview. It didn't exist. I stayed silent the whole time, taking notes, watching her dig deeper with every answer. By the end, she was sweating through her blazer. After she left, the VP turned to me. Did you know her before this? I nodded. She's my sister-in-law. His eyebrows shot up. And you let her interview? I shrugged. She applied like everyone else. Seemed fair to give her the same process. We unanimously rejected her application. I drafted the email myself. We regret to inform you that we have decided to move forward with other candidates. She called my husband that night, sobbing, said the interview had been a setup, that I'd sabotaged her on purpose. My husband confronted me, asking why I hadn't warned her I'd be in the interview. I looked at him calmly and said one thing that made him go quiet. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up at our house unannounced. She was different now, quieter. Her designer bag replaced with something from Target. She asked to speak with me privately. We sat in the kitchen while my husband hovered in the hallway. I know what you saw, she said quietly. The lies on my resume. I said nothing. Are you going to tell everyone? I leaned back in my chair. That depends. On what? I slid a folder across the table. She opened it slowly, her face going pale as she read the first page. Inside were printouts of every nasty comment she'd ever made about my career. Screenshots from her Facebook posts where she'd called me a glorified secretary. Text messages to my husband where she'd suggested he could do better than someone who just hired people for a living. And at the very bottom, a highlighted section from our company's ethics policy about fraudulent applications. Vanessa's hands shook as she flipped through the pages. This is blackmail, she whispered. No, I said calmly. This is a conversation about honesty. She looked up at me, mascara starting to run. What do you want? I want you to understand something. For 3 years, you've treated my career like a joke. You've made me feel small at every family gathering. You've rolled your eyes when I tried to explain what I actually do. And now you're sitting in my kitchen because you need the thing you mocked. Vanessa opened her mouth to respond, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. You lied on your application. That alone would get you blacklisted from every major company in this industry. I could send this to the pharmaceutical hiring network with one email. Make sure you never work in sales again. Her face crumpled. Please don't. But I'm not going to do that, I continued. Because unlike you, I actually believe in second chances. However, those chances come with conditions. What conditions? First, you're going to apologize. Not to me, to my husband. You're going to admit that you've disrespected his wife for years and that you were wrong. Second, you're going to get professional help updating your resume. Honestly. No lies, no exaggerations. Third, at the next family dinner, you're going to let me finish a sentence when someone asks what I do. Vanessa stared at me. That's it? I leaned forward. And fourth, you're never going to apply to Belmont Tech again, because if you do, I'll make sure this folder ends up on every recruiter's desk in the city. She wiped her eyes, smudging makeup across her cheek. Okay, say it. Okay, I'll do it. All of it. Good. Now get out of my house. She gathered the papers, stuffing them back into the folder with trembling hands. As she reached the door, she turned back. Why are you helping me at all? I shrugged. Because someone has to be the adult in this family. And it's clearly not going to be you. After she left, my husband emerged from the hallway. You didn't have to be so harsh, he said quietly. Yes, I did. Your sister has spent 3 years being harsh to me. She just never thought there would be consequences. He didn't argue. Instead, he wrapped his arms around me and whispered, I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you more. The next family dinner was 2 weeks later. Mother-in-law had invited everyone over for Sunday brunch. I almost didn't go, but my husband convinced me it would look worse if I stayed home. Vanessa arrived 15 minutes late, which was early for her. She'd clearly been crying recently. Her eyes were puffy and her makeup was too thick. She sat across from me and didn't make eye contact. My father-in-law asked how the job search was going. Vanessa mumbled something about restructuring her approach. Then my mother-in-law, bless her oblivious heart, turned to me. And how's work going for you, dear? Still doing that hiring thing? Before I could answer, Vanessa cut in. She's the senior recruiting manager at Belmont Tech. She runs talent acquisition for 8,000 employees across 12 states. She decides who gets hired and who doesn't. It's actually a really important position. The table went silent. My husband's jaw dropped. His parents looked confused. Vanessa continued, her voice shaking slightly. I'm sorry I never understood that before. I was wrong to minimize what you do. I nodded once. Thank you, Vanessa. The rest of the meal passed in uncomfortable silence. But something had shifted. My mother-in-law asked me actual questions about my work. My father-in-law mentioned a neighbor's son who was job hunting and wondered if I had advice. Even my husband's younger brother, who usually stayed quiet, wanted to know how I'd gotten into recruiting. Vanessa said nothing for the rest of the meal. She picked at her food and left early, claiming she had applications to submit. After she was gone, my mother-in-law pulled me aside. I don't know what happened between you two, but thank you for whatever it was. She's been insufferable lately, and someone needed to humble her. I just smiled and said nothing. 3 weeks passed. Vanessa got hired at a medical device company, making $15,000 less than her previous job. She posted about it on social media with a caption about new beginnings and staying humble. The comments were full of people congratulating her. She didn't mention the lies or the rejection or the conversation in my kitchen. I thought that was the end of it. Then my assistant buzzed me one afternoon. There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. Vanessa stood in my office doorway, her face blotchy and red. Can we talk? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat down heavily, her purse clutched in her lap. I need your help, she said quietly, with something bigger than a job. I leaned back in my chair. I'm listening. It turns out the pharmaceutical company that laid me off is under federal investigation. They want me to testify about sales practices, illegal ones, things I saw but never reported. My stomach tightened. What kind of things? Kickbacks to doctors, off-label promotion, falsified clinical data. They're offering me immunity if I cooperate, but if I don't, they're saying I could be charged as an accessory. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't know what to do. And you're the only person I know who deals with this kind of thing. Employment law, ethics violations, all of it. I'm not a lawyer, Vanessa. I know, but you know people who are. And I need someone I can trust to guide me through this. Someone who won't leak it to the family before I'm ready. I studied her face. She looked genuinely terrified. Gone was the smug pharmaceutical sales rep who'd mocked my career. In her place sat someone who'd just realized the industry she'd worshipped was built on corruption. Why should I help you? She met my eyes. Because despite everything, you're better than me. You proved that when you didn't destroy me with that folder. I'm asking you to be better than me again. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I know someone. Employment attorney who specializes in whistleblower cases. She's good. Expensive, but good. Vanessa's face crumpled with relief. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get ugly. Your old company will come after you. They'll try to discredit you, drag your name through the mud. If you have any skeletons in your closet, they'll find them. She paled. The resume lies. Already out there. If they dig, they'll find the application you submitted to Belmont. The one that doesn't match your actual employment history. Then I'm screwed. Not necessarily. I leaned forward. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell your lawyer everything. Every lie. Every exaggeration. Every corner you cut. Get ahead of it before they can use it against you. She nodded frantically. And Vanessa? This changes nothing between us. I'm connecting you with a lawyer because it's the right thing to do. Not because we're suddenly friends. I understand. I forwarded her the attorney's contact information. She left my office walking like someone going to her own execution. My husband called me that night. Vanessa told me what's happening. Thank you for helping her. I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it because letting pharmaceutical companies get away with illegal practices hurts everyone, including the patients who trusted them. Still, it's generous, it's strategic. If this goes to trial, Belmont might get called as a reference for her character. I'd rather control that narrative now. He was quiet for a moment. You're always 3 steps ahead, aren't you? Someone has to be. The investigation moved slowly. Vanessa met with federal prosecutors 12 times over the next 4 months. Each time, she looked more exhausted. Her social media went dark. Her few remaining friends from the pharmaceutical industry stopped returning her calls. The story broke in the spring. Major pharmaceutical company under investigation for widespread fraud. 8 executives indicted, 200 million in fines. And Vanessa's name appeared in the court documents as a cooperating witness. Her phone number got leaked somehow. She started receiving death threats. Someone spray-painted her car. She moved 3 times in 2 months, each apartment cheaper than the last. My mother-in-law called me in tears. She's falling apart. She won't eat, she won't sleep. She keeps saying she ruined her life by telling the truth. Is she safe? Physically? Yes. The prosecutors got her into a protection program. But mentally, I don't know. I should have felt vindicated. Wasn't this what I'd wanted? Vanessa finally understanding that actions have consequences? That you can't build a career on lies and arrogance without it eventually collapsing? But instead, I felt tired. I called the attorney I'd recommended. How bad is it? Bad. They're trying to paint her as a disgruntled employee making things up for revenge. Her past is getting picked apart. Every mistake, every exaggeration, every nasty comment she's ever made online. The resume lies? Front and center. They're using it to claim she's a pathological liar who can't be trusted. Can she survive this? The attorney sighed. Depends on how strong her testimony is, and whether she can hold it together under cross-examination. The trial started in June. I followed it through news reports, not because I cared about Vanessa, but because the case itself was fascinating. The pharmaceutical company had systematically defrauded Medicare, bribed doctors, and buried research showing their drugs caused serious side effects. Vanessa was one of 30 witnesses testifying to the corruption. Her testimony lasted 3 days. I read the transcripts online, watching the defense attorneys tear into her credibility. They brought up the falsified resume, the social media posts mocking other people's careers, the fact that she'd waited months before coming forward. But Vanessa held firm. Yes, I lied on a job application. Yes, I've made mistakes. But I saw what this company was doing, and I can't stay silent anymore. Not when people are getting hurt. The jury deliberated for 11 days. Guilty on 38 counts. Vanessa's name was everywhere after that. Some outlets called her a hero. Others called her an opportunist who only came forward to save herself. The truth, like always, was somewhere in the middle. She showed up at my office again 2 weeks after the verdict. She looked different. Thinner, older, like she'd aged 5 years and 6 months. I wanted to say thank you, she said quietly, for the lawyer, for not making this worse. I nodded but said nothing. I also wanted you to know I'm leaving, moving across the country. Fresh start, new name, the whole thing. The prosecutors helped set it up. Good luck. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. I spent my whole life thinking success meant having the right title, making the right salary, impressing the right people. It took losing everything to realize I was measuring the wrong things. I looked up from my computer. What are you going to do now? I don't know yet. But whatever it is, it'll be honest. After she left, I sat at my desk thinking about the woman who'd walked into my Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago. The one who'd made me feel small. The one who'd valued status over integrity. That woman was gone now, replaced by someone who'd learned the hardest lesson life can teach. The following Thanksgiving, Vanessa wasn't at dinner. My mother-in-law mentioned she'd moved to Oregon, working at a nonprofit that helped whistleblowers navigate the legal system. No fancy title, no impressive salary, just people helping other people survive the consequences of doing the right thing. My father-in-law asked how my work was going. Before I could answer, my husband jumped in. She's being considered for VP of Talent Strategy. Corporate wants her to oversee recruitment for the entire company. The table erupted in congratulations. My mother-in-law beamed. My husband squeezed my hand under the table. But all I could think about was Vanessa in Oregon, probably eating Thanksgiving dinner with strangers who'd also lost everything by telling the truth. I excused myself from the table and went outside. The November air was cold against my face. I pulled out my phone and found Vanessa's new number. She'd given it to me before she left, just in case. I typed out a message. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you're somewhere good. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a response came through. I am. Thank you for everything, even when I didn't deserve it. I put my phone away and went back inside to a family that finally understood what I did for a living. But the victory felt hollow somehow. Because I'd won. But Vanessa had lost everything. 6 months later, I got promoted to VP. My first official act was implementing a new ethics training program for all hiring managers. No more looking the other way when candidates exaggerated credentials. No more giving passes to people who knew the right names. My assistant asked if this was because of what happened with my sister-in-law. I said no, but we both knew I was lying. The truth was, Vanessa had taught me something important. That sometimes the people who look the most successful are barely holding it together. That arrogance is usually fear wearing an expensive suit. That everyone's one bad decision away from losing everything they've built. I started volunteering with the nonprofit Vanessa worked for, not in Oregon, but remotely, reviewing resumes for whistleblowers trying to rebuild their careers, helping them explain employment gaps without lying, teaching them how to frame cooperation with federal investigations as a strength rather than a weakness. My husband thought it was strange. You barely liked my sister before all this happened. Now you're helping people like her? I'm not helping people like her. I'm helping people who did the hardest thing in the world and are paying for it. The phone call started small. A former pharmaceutical rep who'd testified about pricing schemes and couldn't get hired anywhere. A financial analyst who'd reported fraud and got blacklisted. An engineer who'd blown the whistle on safety violations and lost her whole career. I couldn't get them jobs at Belmont. Our legal department would never allow it. But I could connect them with smaller companies willing to take a chance. I could teach them how to talk about their past without sounding defensive. I could remind them that integrity matters even when it costs everything. One evening, a year after the trial ended, Vanessa called me directly. I almost didn't answer. Hey, she said when I picked up. I know this is weird, but I need to ask you something. Okay. There's someone here, former sales rep from another pharmaceutical company. She testified against her employer and now she can't get work anywhere. I've been helping her with her resume, but it's not my area of expertise. Send me her information. I'll take a look. Really? Really? There was a long pause. Why do you keep helping people like me? I thought about that for a moment. Because someone has to. And because despite everything, I understand what it's like to be underestimated. After we hung up, I opened the resume Vanessa had sent. The woman had 15 years of pharmaceutical experience, multiple awards, and a gap of 18 months where she'd been unemployed after testifying in a federal case. Her credentials were solid. Her references were non-existent. No one in the industry would touch her. I made 3 calls. The first company said no immediately. The second said they'd think about it. The third was a medical technology startup looking for someone with pharmaceutical experience who understood ethical sales practices. They hired her 2 weeks later. Vanessa called me crying when she found out. You got her a job. An actual job. I connected her with someone who was hiring. She got herself the job. But you made it possible. I made nothing possible. I just opened a door. She walked through it herself. The list grew. Word spread through the whistleblower community that there was someone at Belmont Tech who would review resumes, make calls, and vouch for people no one else would touch. My assistant started blocking off 2 hours every Friday afternoon for what we called reconstruction consultations. My boss called me into her office one day. I'm getting reports that you're spending company time helping people who testified against major corporations. People who could never work here. That's correct. She leaned back in her chair. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. And because these people have integrity that most candidates only pretend to have. She studied me for a long moment. You realize this could damage relationships with our pharmaceutical clients. They don't like employees who support whistleblowers. Then maybe we shouldn't have pharmaceutical clients who prioritize profit over honesty. Her expression didn't change. That's a bold position for a VP to take. It's the only position worth taking. She smiled slightly. I agree. Keep doing what you're doing. Just be smart about it. The work continued. Some people I helped found good jobs. Others never recovered their careers. But all of them learned the same lesson Vanessa had learned. That integrity costs something. Sometimes it costs everything. But at least you can sleep at night. 2 years after the trial, Vanessa called with news. I'm getting married. I was genuinely surprised. To who? Another whistleblower. He testified against a defense contractor. Lost his clearance, his career, his pension. We met at a support group. Congratulations. I want you to come to the wedding. I don't think that's a good idea. Please. You're the only person from that part of my life who treated me like a human being, even when I didn't deserve it. I'll think about it. I didn't go to the wedding, but I sent a gift. A framed quote I'd found while working with whistleblowers. Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Vanessa sent a thank you note 3 weeks later. She'd hung it in their apartment above her desk. A reminder, she wrote, of why we do this work even when it's hard. My husband asked why I hadn't attended the wedding. You helped his sister more than anyone. She wanted you there. I helped her because it was right, not because we're friends. There's a difference. He didn't push. He'd learned over the years that I kept clear boundaries between professional kindness and personal relationships. The following year, my mother-in-law got sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The kind that moves fast and doesn't care about treatment plans or positive thinking. She had maybe 6 months. The family rallied. My husband took time off work. His father hired round-the-clock nurses. His younger brother moved back home. And Vanessa flew in from Oregon, taking a leave of absence from her nonprofit work. I visited twice a week, bringing groceries and sitting with my mother-in-law while her husband napped. She told stories about raising 3 kids, about building a life with someone she'd known since high school, about regrets and triumphs and all the messy middle parts that make up a marriage. One afternoon, while my husband and his father were meeting with hospice coordinators, Vanessa sat down beside me in the kitchen. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you still hate me? I looked at her. Hate is too strong a word. I never hated you. Then what? I thought you were shallow, arrogant, cruel in small ways that added up to big hurts. But I never hated you. And now? Now I think you're someone who learned a hard lesson and actually changed. That's rare. She wiped her eyes. Mom's been asking about you. About why we're not closer. She thinks we should be friends since we're both strong women who don't take crap from anyone. Your mom sees what she wants to see. Vanessa laughed bitterly. She always has. When I was in pharmaceutical sales making 6 figures, she bragged about me to everyone. Now that I work at a nonprofit making $38,000 a year, she tells people I'm taking time to find myself. You are finding yourself. Just not in the way she expected. My mother-in-law died 6 weeks later, surrounded by family. At the funeral, Vanessa gave the eulogy. She talked about her mother's strength, her dedication to family, her ability to love unconditionally even when she didn't understand the choices her children made. I stood in the back of the church, watching my husband cry beside his father, watching Vanessa struggle through her speech with tears streaming down her face, watching a family grieve the woman who'd held them together even when they were falling apart. After the service, Vanessa found me in the parking lot. Thank you for coming, and for everything you did for Mom during her last months. She was family. Of course I came. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. I want to show you something. It was a message from one of the women we'd helped find employment. She'd been promoted to regional sales director. Her new company had implemented ethics training based on her suggestions. She was rebuilding not just her career, but an entire industry's approach to honest sales practices. This is because of you, Vanessa said quietly. Because you taught me that helping people isn't weakness. It's the only thing that matters. I taught you nothing. You figured it out yourself. After the funeral, life returned to normal. My husband grieved his mother. His father sold the family house and moved into a condo. Vanessa went back to Oregon and her nonprofit work, and I continued running talent acquisition while spending Friday afternoons helping people rebuild their lives. 3 years after the original Thanksgiving dinner, I got an email from corporate. They wanted to expand my role, make me chief talent officer for the entire organization, oversee not just recruitment, but employee development, succession planning, and corporate culture. It was everything I'd worked toward. The kind of promotion that came with corner offices and executive parking and the respect I'd spent years earning. I called my husband with the news. He was ecstatic. See? All those people who underestimated you were wrong, including your sister, especially my sister. But accepting the position meant giving up the Friday afternoon consultations. The new role required too much travel, too many high-level meetings, too much focus on strategy rather than individual cases. I had to choose between career advancement and the work I'd been doing with whistleblowers. My boss gave me a week to decide. I spent 7 days weighing the options. The C-suite position would give me influence over hiring practices across the entire company. I could implement ethics standards, create policies that valued integrity, shape corporate culture from the top down. But I'd lose the direct connection to people who needed help the most. The ones who'd sacrificed everything and gotten nothing in return. On day 6, Vanessa called. She'd heard about my promotion through family channels. Congratulations. You deserve it. Thank you. There was a pause. Are you going to keep doing the consultation work? I don't think I'll have time. She was quiet for a long moment. That work matters. More than you know. The people you've helped, they tell others. And those people come to us knowing there's someone out there who understands, who won't judge them for doing the right thing. I know. But this promotion could let me help thousands of people instead of dozens. Different kind of help, though. Systemic versus individual. Exactly. She sighed. I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that before I met you, I thought power meant having an impressive title and making people feel small. Now I know it means using whatever influence you have to lift people up, even when it costs you something. This would cost me something? It would cost you time, energy, the ability to focus on individual stories, but it would give you the power to change systems. Systems that need changing. I said quietly. Only you can decide if that's worth the trade-off. I hung up and sat at my desk thinking about the woman who'd mocked my career 3 years ago, the one who'd had to lose everything before understanding what actually mattered. She was giving me advice now, and the advice was good. I accepted the promotion with one condition, that I could maintain a small consulting practice on the side, working with individuals who needed career guidance after ethical conflicts with previous employers. My boss agreed, as long as it didn't interfere with my primary responsibilities. The compromise wasn't perfect. I could only help a few people each month instead of every week, but those few people mattered. And the new position let me implement policies that protected employees who reported unethical practices. We created a whistleblower protection program at Belmont. We updated our hiring guidelines to value integrity over credentials. We started partnerships with nonprofits that supported people who'd sacrificed their careers for honesty. Vanessa called 6 months into my new role. The work you're doing is making waves. We're getting referrals from companies that heard about Belmont's ethics program. They want to know how to build something similar. Tell them to call me. I'll walk them through it. Really? Really. This isn't proprietary information. It's just good business practice. Over the next year, I consulted with 15 companies on building ethical hiring practices and whistleblower protections. Some implemented real changes. Others just wanted the good publicity. But slowly, incrementally, the industry started shifting. My husband noticed the change in me. You're different now. Happier, maybe. I'm doing work that matters. You always did work that mattered. Now you just believe it yourself. He was right. For years, I'd let Vanessa's comments make me question my value. Let her mockery chip away at my confidence. Let her arrogance convince me that titles and salaries were the only measures of success. But watching her lose everything and rebuild had taught me something crucial. That success without integrity is just elaborate failure waiting to happen. And that the people who do the hardest, most thankless work are often the ones who matter most. 4 years after that first Thanksgiving, Vanessa's nonprofit expanded nationally. They opened offices in 6 states, helping hundreds of whistleblowers navigate career rebuilding. She became the executive director, not because she wanted power, but because she understood the work better than anyone. She called me when the expansion was announced. Want to be on our advisory board? What would that entail? Quarterly meetings, helping us understand corporate hiring practices, making connections between our clients and companies willing to hire them. I'm in. Really? Just like that? Just like that. We've come a long way from that Thanksgiving dinner. I smiled. We have. Though I still remember every condescending comment you made about my career. She laughed. I do too. And I cringe every single time. But I'm grateful you didn't let me get away with it. Someone had to be the adult. And it definitely wasn't me. The advisory board work connected me with people across multiple industries. Tech executives who'd reported security breaches. Financial analysts who'd exposed fraud. Healthcare workers who'd documented patient abuse. All of them had done the right thing. All of them had paid enormous prices. My role was simple. I helped them translate their courage into employable skills. taught them how to frame moral stands as leadership qualities, connected them with companies that valued integrity over industry connections. Some days were harder than others. The people who'd lost pensions, marriages, relationships with their children, the ones who'd been blacklisted so thoroughly they could never work in their fields again, the ones who wondered if telling the truth had been worth destroying their entire lives. I couldn't answer that question for them, but I could sit with them in the uncertainty, remind them that integrity has value even when the market doesn't recognize it, help them find work that might not pay as well, but let them sleep at night. Vanessa and I developed a system. She'd work with people through the emotional trauma of being a whistleblower. I'd work with them on rebuilding professional credibility. Together, we could take someone from completely broken to cautiously hopeful. My husband asked one night why I spent so much time on this work when my day job was already demanding. You're stretched thin. Maybe you should step back. I can't. Why not? Because someone has to care about these people. And if I don't, who will? He wrapped his arms around me. You're a better person than you give yourself credit for. I'm not better. I'm just doing what should be normal. But it's not normal. That's why it matters. 5 years after Vanessa had walked into my kitchen with her lies exposed, she came to visit. Not because she needed something, but because we'd become friends in the strange way people do after going through fire together. We sat in my backyard drinking wine while my husband grilled dinner. She told me about her latest success story. A former banking executive who'd exposed a mortgage fraud scheme and spent 3 years unemployed. Vanessa's nonprofit had helped her transition into teaching financial literacy to underserved communities. She's happier now than she ever was making $300,000 a year, Vanessa said. She told me that losing everything forced her to figure out what actually mattered. Sounds familiar. Vanessa smiled. It does. Funny how that works. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then she turned to me. Can I ask you something I've always wondered? Sure. When you saw my application, when you realized I'd lied about everything, why didn't you just reject me immediately? Why put me through the interview? I thought about that for a long time. Honestly, I wanted to watch you squirm. I wanted you to feel what it was like to be exposed. And now I'm glad I did. Because if I just rejected you quietly, you would have learned nothing. You would have blamed me and moved on. But sitting in that interview, having to defend lies in front of people who knew better, that changed you. So it was tough love? It was accountability, which is different. My husband brought out the food and we ate as the sun set. Vanessa told stories about her husband, about their work with whistleblowers, about slowly rebuilding a life that looked nothing like what she'd planned. Before she left, she hugged me tight. Thank you for not giving up on me when I deserved it. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was right. I know. That's why it mattered. After she drove away, my husband and I cleaned up the yard. He asked what I was thinking about. I'm thinking about how complicated people are. How someone can be genuinely terrible and genuinely redeemed. How consequences and compassion aren't opposites. Heavy thoughts for a Tuesday night. They're the only thoughts worth having. The work continued. Year after year, I helped people rebuild careers destroyed by doing the right thing. Some succeeded spectacularly. Others scraped by. A few never recovered. But all of them mattered. My role at Belmont evolved. I wasn't just hiring anymore. I was shaping culture, building systems, creating an environment where integrity was valued more than efficiency or profit. It was slow, frustrating work. For every policy I implemented, there were 12 people pushing back. But gradually, things changed. We started attracting talent from companies with toxic cultures. People who'd been pushed out for questioning unethical practices. Employees who valued mission over compensation. And our retention rates improved because people trusted that we'd support them even when they challenged leadership. The pharmaceutical company that had investigated Vanessa eventually went bankrupt. The fines, the legal fees, and the destroyed reputation were too much to survive. 800 employees lost their jobs through no fault of their own. Vanessa's nonprofit worked with 40 of them, helping former employees transition to new industries. And I personally reviewed resumes for 15, making calls and leveraging relationships to get them interviews. One woman asked me why I was helping people from the company that had tried to destroy my sister-in-law. Seems like you'd want them to suffer. They're not the company. They're people who worked there. Big difference. But they were part of the system that created the corruption. And now they have a choice. They can find new work and perpetuate the same problems, or they can find companies that do better. My job is to help them choose better. 6 years into my role as Chief Talent Officer, I got invited to speak at a national conference on ethical hiring practices. The audience was mostly HR professionals and recruitment managers, people who made decisions about who got hired and who didn't. I talked about Vanessa without naming her, about a family member who'd mocked my career, lied on her application, and forced me to choose between revenge and redemption, about how that choice had led to completely reshaping my understanding of what hiring actually means. Hiring isn't about finding people with perfect resumes, I told them. It's about identifying character, about recognizing that someone who's made mistakes and learned from them is often more valuable than someone who's never been tested. After the speech, a woman approached me. She was in her mid-50s, well-dressed, and clearly uncomfortable. What you said about people who've made mistakes? She started. Does that include people who've been fired for whistleblowing? Especially them. Her eyes filled with tears. I reported safety violations at my last company. They fired me and told everyone I was difficult to work with. I haven't been able to get an interview in 2 years. I pulled out my business card. Send me your resume. Let's talk. She emailed me that night. Her credentials were impeccable. 20 years in manufacturing, multiple certifications, a track record of improving safety standards. But she'd reported that her company was using substandard materials in medical equipment, and they'd destroyed her professionally. I made 6 calls. The first 5 said they couldn't risk hiring someone with her reputation. The 6th was a manufacturing company that had recently implemented new ethics standards after their own scandal. They hired her as their director of safety compliance. She called me crying when she got the offer. "You don't even know me. Why would you go to this much effort?" Because this is what the work looks like. And because someone did it for someone I know. Stories like that became my focus. Not just hiring for Belmont, but changing how the entire industry approached talent. I published articles about valuing integrity. I consulted with companies on building protective systems for ethical employees. I spoke at conferences about the business case for supporting whistleblowers. My husband worried I was taking on too much. "You're working 70-hour weeks. You barely sleep. When does this end?" "When it doesn't need to be done anymore." "That might be never." "Then I guess I'll be working until I die." He didn't like that answer, but he understood it. He'd watched me transform from someone who questioned her own value to someone who understood exactly what she was worth. And what she was worth was measured not in titles or salary, but in the number of people she'd helped rebuild their lives. 7 years after that first Thanksgiving, I got a letter from Vanessa. Not an email or a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered through the mail. "Dear sister-in-law," it began. "I'm writing this instead of calling because I want you to have something physical. Something you can keep and read when you doubt whether the work matters. Last week, we helped place our 1,000th whistleblower into meaningful employment. 1,000 people who did the right thing and paid for it. 1,000 people who thought their careers were over. 1,000 people who are now working again because someone cared enough to help them. You started this. When you could have destroyed me, you rebuilt me instead. And I've spent every day since then trying to pay that forward. Every person we help is because you chose accountability over cruelty. Every company that changes its practices is because you proved integrity has value. I know you don't think what you did was special. You'll read this and minimize your role. You'll say you just connected people or made some calls or did what anyone would do. But that's the thing. Most people wouldn't do it. Most people would have let me burn. Most people would have moved on without looking back. You taught me that power isn't about making others small. It's about making room for them to grow. And that lesson has shaped everything I've done since. Thank you for being harder on me than anyone else. Thank you for expecting better even when I'd given you every reason not to. Thank you for showing me what integrity actually looks like." With love and gratitude, Vanessa, I read the letter 3 times, then put it in my desk drawer. Not to forget about it, but to keep it close. On days when the work felt overwhelming, when I questioned whether any of this actually mattered, I could pull it out and remember. One person doing better creates ripples. And ripples become waves. And waves change everything. My mother-in-law had been right about one thing. Vanessa and I were both strong women who didn't take crap from anyone. We just got there through very different paths. She'd learned through loss and rebuilding. I'd learned through being underestimated and proving everyone wrong. Together, we were changing systems that had been broken for decades. Not quickly, not easily, but consistently and with purpose. The work continued. More people helped. More systems changed. More companies understood that protecting employees who report problems was good business, not risk management. And sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd think about that Thanksgiving dinner 7 years ago. About the woman who'd mocked my career while sipping wine and feeling superior. About how certain I'd been that I disliked her and always would. I still didn't like her exactly, but I respected her. I valued her. I understood her in ways I'd never expected to. And that, somehow, was better than friendship. It was partnership built on honest recognition of who we'd both been and who we'd become. The phone rang at 2 a.m. on a random Thursday. I answered groggily, my husband stirring beside me. It was Vanessa. Her voice was shaking. "There's been an incident. One of our clients, a whistleblower from a defense contractor. He's being threatened. They found where he lives. Is he safe? For now. He's at a police station, but he has nowhere to go. His family cut him off when he testified. He's been staying in extended stay motels, moving every few weeks. Send me his information. I'll make some calls." At 2 a.m.? At 2 a.m., I spent the next 3 hours working my network, called in favors, made promises, leveraged every professional relationship I'd built over 15 years. By dawn, I'd found him a place to stay. A colleague who ran a network of safe houses for people fleeing dangerous situations agreed to take him in. Vanessa called back at 6 a.m. "How did you do that?" "I know people who know people. And they trust that if I'm asking, it matters. Thank you." He was about to give up. Go back to the contractor and recant his testimony just to make the threat stop. But he didn't. Because someone showed up at 2 a.m. and proved he wasn't alone. That's the work, Vanessa. Showing up when it costs something. After we hung up, I lay in bed watching the sunrise through the window. My husband reached over and took my hand. "You're not going back to sleep, are you?" "Nope." "Want to tell me about it?" "Not really. But I will anyway." I told him about the phone call, the frantic networking, the man who'd almost given up, about how thin the line was between doing the right thing and losing everything, about how fragile courage could be when no one reinforced it. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said something I hadn't expected. "I used to worry that my sister broke something in you, that making you feel small, changed how you saw yourself. But watching you now, I think she broke something in you that needed breaking, and you built something better in its place." I smiled in the darkness. Your sister didn't break me. She underestimated me. There's a difference. Is there? One means I was damaged. The other means I was overlooked. And I spent my whole life turning being overlooked into an advantage. He kissed my forehead. Best advantage I've ever seen. The sun came up fully, and I got ready for work. Another day of hiring, of building systems, of making space for people who'd been pushed out. Another day of proving that integrity matters even when the market doesn't reward it. And somewhere across the country, a former defense contractor whistleblower was waking up in a safe house, probably still shaking from the threats, but knowing that he wasn't alone, that someone had shown up at 2 a.m. because his courage deserved protection. That was the work. Unglamorous, exhausting, absolutely necessary work. The kind that didn't make headlines or win awards. The kind that most people never noticed and even fewer valued. But it was the work that mattered. And I'd spend the rest of my career doing it. One phone call at a time, one connection at a time, one person at a time. Because 7 years ago, someone had mocked my career and called it meaningless. And I'd spent every day since proving that the quiet work of building other people up was the only work worth doing. Vanessa understood that now. Understood it in her bones the way only someone who'd lost everything could understand. And together, we'd keep doing the work. Not because it was easy or profitable or impressive, but because someone had to care, and we decided it would be us.